Dunbar, what do you have?
Today, Michael, I'm bringing you a bullet from the famous Odd. The Odd, as we know, Roger Casement was sent to Germany to procure weapons, and also he went to the prisoner of war camps to see could he bring Irishmen back home to fight in the 1916. So he eventually procured 20,000 rifles and 1 million rounds of ammunition, and these were loaded on board the Odd, which was disguised as a Norwegian merchant ship, and he eventually was to rendezvous off Feenet Harbour off Kerry. And when he arrived in his position, or at least he thought he was there was all sorts of signals given out, but Captain Spindler was the man who was commanding it, and he was sailing up and down the coast, but he didn't have a radio. They had no radio contact. So there's supposed to be red lights and green lights on Feenet Harbour when they were ready, but it never happened. And he sailed up and down, and eventually the British frigates surrounded him and were escorting him back into Cork Harbour. So rather than let the British get the weapons, he arranged with and to scuttle the ship. So she sank in 1916, but in 1971, she was rediscovered and dived on. And I was in work one day, and a woman phoned me and says, "Are you in work in Weatherglaze?" "I am." She says, "Can I meet you in the car park?" And so she came out and she presented 2 bullets like that, and she says, "These are from the Odd. My friend dived on it in 1972 and brought up a whole bag of bullets." So she says to me, "Pick one of them and it's yours." And I got this Pat Horney of Gorey picture framing to mount it for me. So that's Moyes and Nagin were the make of the bullets, were the weapons, and these were Russians. They were almost obsolete, single shot, but our lads had nothing and they were delighted to get them. So, and as we know, Casement himself arrived afterwards in a U-boat into a small canvas canoe, sailed into Banna Bay, and he was caught. He was found hiding in a ring fort, a Raheen, believe it or not, and he was taken to England, and he was hung as a traitor to the British. They stripped him of his Sir title, and so that's what we have, Michael. That's a bullet from the seabed off Cork Harbour. Yeah. Now this is a photograph of crinoids. This was taken off Hookhead, and actually on the rocky shoreline. And as it happens, Michael, who's controlling the camera, we happened to be there that day, and we were uncovering the era sign from the war. I think it was 61, Mick, number 61 era. And I went out onto the rocky shoreline, and I spotted this, and I took a photograph about that size, and so I sent it off. There was a competition on in Cork in UCC, a national fossil competition, and I sent it in, and they blew it up to this size, and it took a highly commended and €100 voucher came with it. So these are crinoids. That's about 3 million years old. The rocks would have risen up, or else the seabed would have went down, and these were left exposed and frozen in time. So they're crinoids. Yeah. So that's it, Michael.
Thanks, Owen.
I know about it.
I brought 2 items, one a family item and one a curiosity item. This is an album from Esmonde's house, dated 1881. And it turns out that my great-grandmother was a Murphy of Ballynastragh, and she was baptised here in this parish. I found her entry in the register. But when she was a young child, one of the Esmonde's children was sent to Gorey Loretta Convent for an education, and she was sent on a pony and trap every morning. And my great-grandmother was sent with her, of the same age, and they became obviously good friends, and she became her lady in waiting or something like that. And when she left to get married, they gave her a gift of the album from Esmonde's house, from Sir T.E. and Master T Esmonde, I suppose, January 1881. Of course, the locals here would know that Esmonde's house was burnt to the ground in the 1920s or thereabouts, wasn't it? So some of these photos might not exist, but there are some missing, unfortunately. Sir J. Esmonde and his wife, John Esmonde and his wife, the Esmonde family I see in it. Sir Thomas Esmonde, a papal chaplain, and he 2 sons, one killed at the Battle of Jutland, and another Esmonde chap who was killed in an air crash, Lawrence, I think. There's my great-grandmother.
Show me, please, yeah.
That's my great-grandmother. So she became her lady-in-waiting or something, or her companion. So my father always used to say that when she was dying, she romanced in French on her deathbed. So that kind of tells us she got some kind of education. But we always say it was because of her we're big readers, and possibly because she ended up as a child going to get educated. There's Sir Thomas Edmund in his papal regalia, 1880. And I don't know who this lady is, and then there's some other family ones in it. But it's just that it's a curiosity, because many of these pictures mightn't exist anymore because the Esmonde place was burnt down. So that's one little item. I've discovered where my great-grandparents are buried up here in Limerick as well. So, and their entry is in the register. Now, those locals would say, well, Ballynastragh is not in Kylenairn parish, but Gorey was not a parish on it. It was a curacy of Kylenairn one time, and it was at that time she was born. So that's my one little item to family. Other things, I'm not sure where they came from. They're prisoner of war tokens from the Curragh camp in County Kildare. I know my father was in the local defence, wasn't it, the Second World War, LDF, and he was sent up there to do a training course, an officer's training course, and I think that's where they came from. There's a 2 shilling in a kind of, it's not silver, 2 shilling. There's nothing on the back, they're only just on the front. Prisoner of war tokens. This one is a 1 shilling. And then the brass ones, this is a 6D, 6 pence. And another brass one, 1 penny. So they were used only, my understanding is they were used only by German prisoners of war during the emergency, because the Allied prisoners of wars were often shipped across the border up to the north and got back to wherever they were from. So it's just a curiosity. They're Irish, they're prisoner of war tokens, and they're from the Second World War. So, yeah, okay.
It is. And can I ask you a question, Father? Was it your own father picked those up?
I think it was. He was up in the Curragh. He used to tell funny stories about. They were all sent as training during the emergency. He used to have a joke about a barber shop outside of the Curragh army camp saying, "Army haircuts repaired 1 shilling" or something like that. This kind of stories. So, but they exist. I've seen them. They're common enough. But the fact that they are prisoner of war tokens from Ireland, and they're dated 1940, so they're not silver, it's kind of aluminium and probably brass, but they were most likely used by the German prisoners of wars rather than the Allied prisoners of wars. That's my little, that's it.
Brilliant. Thanks a million.
All right.
This is Michael, is what I is called a tattooing taggers. All right. When people years ago had a pedigree herd, didn't matter whether you had pedigree sheep or pedigree pigs or pedigree cattle, you always had to tattoo them. And each farm pedigree herd had their own initials. Our own herd, the Clonroe herd, had the initials of ZT, and then each year had a specific letter. So if, for talk's sake, if it was going on at this day, at present time, 2024 to 2025 is M. So every animal that you would be tattooing would be ZT M 1, 2, 3 or 4. The year starts the 1st of July to the 30th of June. So when you register, you tattooed your calf and into the ear. That's just a kind of a sample of what it looked like when the animal is tattooed in the ear. And as you tattoo them in the first month of age, and as the calf goes bigger, the ear goes bigger, and the tattoo is bigger. And then when you actually go to a sale or any sales, you would have to there'd be an inspector there, and he'd be checking it off. When you register a calf, the calf would go into the Hereford herd book. This is a herd book of the Hereford cattle from 1966. You know, kind of, so if you wanted to look up any animal, you know, kind of that was registered any year, you could go into any of these herd books and look them up, and they're under the owner's herd prefix.
Would you show me that the inside of the book there, Pat? So everyone's
everybody's animals is always in these books. You know, kind of, so. Now, 1966, everything was kind of the Hereford Society was based in England, and it wasn't until the 1970s that Ireland actually got their own herd themselves. You know, kind of, so I didn't come into the Irish Hereford Breed Society until I'm not sure of the exact date, but it was in the 1960s, 70s. Them days, when you had bulls to sale, there used to be the only place you'd go to sell bulls them days would be to the RDS in Dublin, and what it entailed would be walking the animals, say wherever you had, to Inch Station and putting the bulls on the train and going to Dublin, taking them off the train in Dublin and walking them to the RDS.
So to be walked along the streets of Dublin.
Walked along the streets of Dublin, and then they'd be coming from all over Ireland. There'd be nothing unusual. You wouldn't be the only one walking the bulls in the streets. They'd be coming from all over Ireland. You know, kind of. There's a catalogue from 1957 for the spring show for the bull sale in RDS. And now, see this her number here. Do you see the LRA 014? That's his tattoo number in his ear. So when that bull went into the RDS, there was somebody there to inspect him and check that out. You know, kind of, so. There were 3 days. There were 3 days bull sales in the RDS them days. There was every breed. There was Frisians, Shorthorns, Angus, and Hereford, and everybody brought them the same way. But as time progressed, people got cars and horse boxes and things like that. There's one from 1974. 1974. Now this is only gone down to a 2-day sale, but like if you still have all the different breeds in it. Now there's Herefords in it, right? So lot number 286, right, was sold for £305. You know, in 1974.
Was that your father's writing?
I think it could have been. Like when my father and grandfather used to go to Dublin, they'd stay with my grandfather's aunt in Dublin. All right. This is a picture of this is a picture that was taken in the RDS around 1975. This is my grandfather here, John Jones of Palace. He's actually a brother of Ned Jones, the ploughman. I think you had him earlier there. And that's my own father there in the background as well, Aidan Jones. And that's my brother John, and brother Michael, and myself. You know, it's a unique picture because it's 3 generations, and it hasn't happened since, you know, in our family anyway, you know. So that's just it, you know, kind of. It's just I seen it was nearly being thrown out, and I just kept it. I said people might be interested in the years to come. That's how we registered pedigree cattle years ago. And there was a man here earlier saying that when pigs used to be bought, they'd have something like that with on a long handle, and he'd come by a pig off every farmer, and he'd give him a different number, and he'd just slap it on the back on the bum, and your number is there. So that's it. Thank you very much.
North Kilkenny, between Johnstown and Timbaltooey, anybody would know that neck of the woods. Very near Folkscourt. Very near Folkscourt. If, like me, if any of you here can reach back as far as 1952, I would have been sitting in a small country school, 2-teacher school. And come this time of the year, or maybe a bit earlier, you'd have got word from your parents. Send word to the master. You'll be needed for turf for the bog. next week. And that would come as a bit of a delight to you, because schools were not very nice places in those years. They were cruel, to put it mildly. But anyway, that day came, and you were set to go to the bog. Now, some of you might have an impression of the bog from, as I would have, from seeing it on television, where they cut turf and they just threw it out around them, and they spread it out around where they were cutting it. Not so in the bog we were working in. You cut turf and you went down about maybe the height of that wall into the bog. The further down you got, the greater the quality of the turf, black turf. When you started out in the bog on day one, you had to strip off the top layer. It was full of heather roots and spongy brown stuff that was no use for burning or for heating. Some of you might note this as a hay knife, which it was, but it was also used to cut out the sections of the top bog before you came along to cut the turf. And it was cut out in cubicles, maybe about 2 foot by 2 foot by 2 foot. And that was sheared off and pushed away right down in the holes where the turf had been cut from the previous year, which would now be full of water. So then the bank, as it was known, was prepared for cutting. And to have an efficient team out to do the work of cutting turf, you had at least to have about 5 people in the family. So a young fella like me, 7 years of age in 1952, would be becoming an economic asset to the family at that stage. And you might say, for what? Well, a fella of my age would have had the job of turf catcher. I should have turned out to be an out-half for Ireland with all the turf that I caught, both for ourselves and for maybe other families when I was that age. But it was both hardship and a holiday, because for people like us coming from the land, the bog was a different environment. It was soft under your foot. You were working with it was a different material. And as well as that, it was a social setting for people of the locality. People, if I can describe to you, it was like going into the bog that I described there near Titania'a at that time. If you were passing the road then and you looked in towards the bog, you saw two rows of people at either side of the toker, was what they called the road, and people working away, maybe anything up to 40 families altogether working there. Everybody from around the area, I'd say for a range of about 6 miles or so, went and worked in the bog. Everybody had a bank in the bog and worked there. So it was a special kind of event in the year. Your year then was marked not by calendars or watches or anything else, but what was happening on the land. You were either sowing potatoes, you were tinning beet, you were going to the bog. These were all events that marked out the year for you. And it was just, I suppose, a different world compared to anything that you see or experience nowadays. No machinery, no, obviously, electrics of any kind. And from what I recall, people chatted and talked and whistled and sang in the bog and expressed themselves because there was a freedom attached to being in the bog. But getting back to the turf cutting, the essential man required in the bog was a sleansman. There was 1 or 2 of those in the locality, and they were revered as being special people because they had the skill to cut the turf, consistent size and shape, and land the turf up into the catcher's hand, where it was placed on a barrow, wheelbarrow, flat barrow, and then wheeled out through the bog. You would have one wheelbarrow being filled while another was being wheeled out, and back and forth. But I can still see the sleansman firing that turf up all day long from beginning to end, cutting down layer upon layer. The layers were called spits. You cut a spit of the bog. The sleansman, as I said, was a special guy. He was usually from the locality, and maybe you were lucky to get hold of the sleansman when you needed him, because he would be very much in demand, as you understand. You weren't finished in the bog when the turf was cut and spread out along the bank. Oh, by the way, a mark of a fairly, a family or a prosperous family or a progressive family would have been the spread of turf that they would have had out on the bog after the week or two's cutting. You might remember Seamus Heaney referring to the turf cutting as his father cutting more turf than any other man in the area. That was a boast. You were somebody who made your mark if you had that bank covered with turf after the season out cutting turf. You were weather dependent. The turf had to dry, and you returned to the bog maybe 2 or 3 weeks later, and you turned that turf over to dry on the other side. A week or two later, you went back and you footed the turf. And the footing of the turf was, in order to dry it out more fully, it was you had, I think as I remember, 3 sods in a tripod configuration with 2 sods flat on top, another one on top of that. And that was to maximise the airflow for the turf to dry. After that, the turf was piled into heaps, maybe about that size, and then prepared to bring out onto the side of the road, where to be later collected and brought home. So I was talking about the mark of a good farmer, a good householder, while also the mark of a good man, a good farm at that time or maybe people who were hardworking, they had an exceptionally good clamp of turf in their haggard, plus a good reek of hay, plus a good reek of straw. So they were 3 fairly essential things to have back then, and to have them in good shape, and the turf particularly for the winter months.
Speaking, can I interrupt you for a second?
Yeah, sure. Michael,
one thing you mentioned about the calendar year.
Yeah.
Now, there was one important Sunday in September years ago.
Right.
And it was a Sunday when you might listen to an All-Ireland football or an All-Ireland hurling final.
Right.
And you have an object behind you that was very important on that day.
Yeah. That height, you'd be... Our house, my mother and father told me they got their first wireless in 1939. They got married that year, and the wireless was delivered to them on Christmas Eve. It wasn't this one. It was a pie, and it was almost exactly the same, but it was made of bakelite, the precursor of plastic, black. It was running batteries, a dry battery and 2 wet batteries. And just before that Sunday we're talking about in September, which was probably the biggest day on the calendar, when, particularly if Kilkenny happened to be playing, you were gathered around in the kitchen, and the neighbours came and sat around and chatted and waited in expectation for the match to start. You would hear a pin drop, and low betide anybody who made any noise or who created any fuss when that match was about to start, and Micheál O'Hare started coming on the wireless, announcing the teams and what have you. And that was the wireless.
And was that radio from your kitchen at home?
That is from the kitchen home, yeah. That has been stuck in an attic for I don't know how long, and I pulled them out there recently, as well as the spade. But the wireless version had exactly the same features as that. The first knob here, volume, as I remember it. The next one, the channel, long wave, medium wave. I forget what that one was, and this one moved the dial. In a sense of devilment, we used to move it down to Luxembourg, much to my father's and mother's displeasure, when they asked who has moved that dial again away from Radio Éireann, you know. So that was part of the fun that went on then.
And was that radio used to listen to All Ireland's in your house?
I don't particularly remember listening to it on this one, but I do on the battery one, because the battery one was a particularly volatile thing. It could work and it could give up maybe just before the match, and if that happened, there was trouble, and there was revolution happening, you know, if that happened. But the batteries, I can see the battery at the back, the dry battery as it was called. It was a brand Ever Ready, but the two wet batteries were kind of cubical glass affairs, and they had to be taken away and taken into the local shop where they were sent off to be recharged every so often. So your job back then was to make sure that those batteries well and truly charged for All Ireland Day, and that happened. You would be sitting there in the kitchen, and the neighbours would be gathered around, and sometimes there wasn't room for all of them sitting around in the kitchen. The back window of the house would be open, and people would sit or stand out of the back window of the garden listening to the match. And that was, as I say, you could not but recall those days because of the number of people that came around and the excitement that attached to it and all the rest of it. So yeah, it certainly was very special, you know.
Brilliant. Listen, thanks a million for sharing that with us. I really appreciate that. Thank you. Mick, what did you bring today for us?
Hay seed fiddle or a grass seed fiddle, and them are all thatcher's tools, and the rake, the scallops, the butter, that's what I call the butter for the edge of the thatch when you finish, the shears for clipping it, and them are knives for cutting it before you, or cutting the scallops. These are the scallops for keep the thatch from blowing away with the wind, and them are the rakes, and these are comfort for your knees.
Tell me this, Mick, where did you get that set?
Go ahead in Dorset.
Over in England.
All in that. Unfortunately, the names were all on that of every tool, but with the weather and the condensation, so I'm going to have to rename them all someday.
And do you remember thatching years ago?
Oh, do you? I didn't thatch, but I remember the thatching going on, yeah. Oh, yeah. And sure, I think they're still thatching Cranford, or is that gone, is it over?
Yeah. And what did you call the sallies there?
Scallops. Yeah.
I remember my own mother saying she used to make them. What's that?
And the two rakes as well.
Yeah.
And some of them now you had to, they used to heat them, and they had a mallet and a block there for tapping them in the middle, so you could bend them and make a staple of them, and they wouldn't break like yours.
Do you know what really caught my eye here, Mick?
No.
Is your fiddle.
Yeah.
Will you put it up on your show us how it works for those who don't know how it works, and tell us all about it?
It's like the school bag, isn't it? That's why I hate putting it on. Just to remind me of.
Now, is that fiddle belong to you?
Yeah, that's it. There. It's very effective, and a little agitator in a bomb as well, you know, to keep the hayseed moving out. And the setting here on the side. After you measured out a small bit of ground, when you're seeing then what it took to do that, you put your setting there and away you went then. And believe it or not, I think I told you before, a man came up with it. You had to use a hayseed or a seed harrow then to cover up the seed afterwards, after the birds take it. But the guy got a great idea. He'd put the seed arrow behind the tractor and he'd sit the man with the fiddle on the bonnet. But believe it or believe it not, he only worked for a while. His arm got tired. You know when you're walking? Yes. You see? So the same thing worked with the fiddle. When you're walking, your arm worked to kind of automatic you. But when you were sitting up there on the bonnet of a tractor, you just worked for it. Oh, great idea, but another trial that failed. But anyway, simple tool, isn't it? And all the settings are there, depending on whether you want to sow turnip seed or kale or grass seed or whatever. Yeah.
And your father would have bought that?
Yeah. And it would have been loaned around like that many one would use it. And that time, if you loan it, you wouldn't forget about it, then you'd want to make sure to have returned again, you know. Because the next time you'd want it, could be a problem getting it, you know. But a nice little thing. And I don't know what, I couldn't put an age. I don't know what it'd be. Because of 100 years old, I'd say. Yeah. And still, like, working as good as the day was, you know.
And what was that replaced with, Mick?
With a spinner, you know, the fertiliser spinners on the back of the tractor, or they had hayseed barrows. If some people here might know what they're.
Yeah.
A hayseed barrow could be twice the length of the table, a shaft running right through the middle of it, all whole, and little brushes at every outlet, and a big wheel on the front of it. I don't know if anybody here ever seen them or not. There was a big wheel about the height, two handles, and the long barrow crossing it. And the wheel then turned the shaft in the middle. And you were able to, there was a kind of a fork, I shouldn't be putting up my fingers like that, but I am anyway, on both ends of the barrow, or you could put the box sideways. John, you might know about that, would you? For going, when you're bringing it back home or going through the gaps, because the box is very wide. So.
I saw one in Offaly, Mick.
Did you? Yeah.
Yeah, a man had one,
Yeah. I have one too, beyond about because the box was so wide and so long, they were hard stored unless you had the rafters up in a shed or something, put them open. But eventually they got. But I have the bones of one anyway, Morris. Yeah.
And for again, anyone looking at this now, Mick, there was a bag there as well, wasn't there?
The bag was tacked. A bag tacked, see the little holes in that? Tacked all around the top of it. And there was a loop on the bag you just hung around your neck, and the bag was filled with grass seed. You know, the grass seed would be up to about here maybe, because you wouldn't want to be going back and filling every few minutes. So a little loop on the bag you put over your neck, and the bag was full up to here. And away you went then.
And you were telling me earlier you had a lovely little bit of a system with a few bushes.
Oh yeah, because how would you know if you go down a big field there? You go there, how would you know to not go back up the same track again? So you put down your bush, put down another one at the end, and you kept moving your bushes as you walk from one end of the field to the other. And then you waited for the result when the field started to get green. The real tale was told then, whether you missed any or even if you didn't miss, if you overlapped or double sowed, like you'd see it greener in one place than the other, you know. And grass seed didn't come that cheap, so there was no point in wasting a header, you know.
That sounds like you were chastised at some stage, were you?
Oh, quite often, yeah. And I don't know whether anybody ever knows about sowing grass seed with your hand. Yes. I remember my father showing me how to do it. You know, you don't let the whole fistful out. You know, you keep. Anyway, I got the message, but didn't work. You could see where I took the lump out of it every time. You know, but sure, that was all part of learning, wasn't it? You know. So anyway, so that's the story on the fiddle and the song broadcast or whatever you like. Yeah.
Brilliant. Listen,
More than a simple little tool, yeah. And the main thing was you didn't sow fertiliser with him, because if you did, you wouldn't have him. You'd rot him out, you know. So that's it. It's there. If anybody wants to run over it, they can. More than welcome.
Yeah. Thanks, Mick.
Yeah.
Peadar, what did you bring?
What did you bring? This was a meat slicer. It came out of Mick Doyle's in Gorey when you got the electric one. You know, it was one here, and this lad measured how thin you wanted to slice. This fella you can let down him, and you shove the meat along here, and shove the meat along from this side, and it fell out on the board out there, and you just had to wind it with the handle here, and then there was a fella here, you left him up there when you were cutting. There was very sharp edge on it, and then when you were finished cutting, you lay it back down there, and the kids wouldn't, anybody in the shop had hurt them or put themselves with it.
And that came on Miley Dials of Gorey?
Miley Dials, yeah. They're top of the down on the left.
And when did you get your hands on that?
He gave it to my sister, Kathleen Green. She used to make jam, I think, and he sold the jam in the shop. And him, they were related. He was related to Kathleen, actually, and myself. Miley Dial. It's still there, like. The son is running the place now.
So that's a piece of history from this part of Wexford.
Yeah.
And would it be cooked meat? Would it be cooked meat? Would it, or was
it would be cooked, I'd say, out of the sausage roll.
Yeah.
So, and you could cut cheese, I suppose, if you want to slice cheese as well. You know. I don't know what they cook bacon with now or not. I don't know. I don't know what the rashers would be like.
Yeah. Brilliant. That's gorgeous. Peadar. I know it's another yoke there for sharpening and stuff. What's that?
Sorry?
This
thing. This is you screw that onto onto the bench, and if you wanted to sharpen knives or sharpen a chisel or anything, you fill that with water. And the stone is always wet, you see, because they sharpen better when you beat whatever you were sharpening, like let it be a knife or whatever, or a blade or anything like that.
Where did you get that?
Christy knows one, I don't know where I got it.
Yeah.
I must have gotten the car boat sales from stage or another. Yeah. I have a long time now.
Brilliant. Yeah. I know it's your hurricane.
Oh, the hurricane, oh yeah. There was one at home now. That's not the one that was at home, but I got that one from a friend of mine, and it's working perfect. It's not leaking. It's full of paraffin oil and all, and they used it before the flash lamp. Do you remember the flash lamp used? Do you know when there's no electricity? You lit up this lad and you went out to see if there was a cow calving or something, or you want, and a hurricane wouldn't blow it out. That's why they call it a hurricane, I think. You know.
I know you've got a great lid on it. Your lid is from a Hennessy bottle, is it?
A Hennessy bottle, yeah. I didn't drink it now.
And the wick as well.
Yeah, the wick is in it, yeah. Oh, it was working.
The smell would bring you back to years ago when electricity would go as a child. That's what I remember ours was taken out. Yeah, that's lovely.
There was no other way of getting around the yard at night time or into the shed, or, you know, you have to have a hurricane. Then the flash lamp came with the battery in it.
And nowadays, Peadar, we can take out our mobile phones and have torches on our mobile phones.
Yeah.
Wasn't light such an important thing for us?
God, sure, we'd be lost without it, sure.
Yeah.
You know.
I noticed you got a bit of turf here.
Sorry?
I noticed you got a bit of turf.
Oh no, that's Mick Higgins.
Oh,
them are brickets.
Brickets, yeah.
Them are brickets. That you wouldn't get them now. I don't think. I think they give up making those. Born them on it.
Yeah.
Brickets, yeah.
And is that telegraph yours?
That's that's a telegram. I used to deliver them when I was a kid going to school, and they rang up the post office in Inch. There was no other way. There was no phones. You didn't have no one had any phones. Burley had a phone, and Esmonde had a phone, but it was only somebody like that. And the message could come from England, could come from anywhere, and they ring up the nearest post office to the address. And I'd have go down to the when there be a post office, a message would come in, to put it in the envelope, in the hand. That one's Talons of Forchester. That would be Behy Talon. And you weren't supposed to open them. Yeah, you weren't supposed to. No, I never did know, but to be honest, I never opened them. But you couldn't stick him back. If it was open, you couldn't stick it back. You see, so you wouldn't be delivering anymore.
Yes.
And you get so much money at the post office. But only 1 and 3 pence or something, 1 and 6 pence, depending on the distance you go. And you had to go to the house on a bicycle then. Didn't matter where it was, up top of Crochan or wherever it was, and deliver it.
And that one there caught my eye, Peadar, because I tell you what, that's the original envelope and the original.
That's yeah.
And would you read it out for people who are looking at this and watching beside us here, the message? On it says, Aidan passed away peacefully yesterday morning, Lizzie.
Yeah.
So there was a message.
That'd be always bad news.
Always bad news. God. So as a little chap, you'd be given this job to go out.
Oh yeah. Go off on my bicycle.
And again, now we can get messages on our mobile phones in seconds, anywhere in the world.
That's unreal. You know, a big difference. You know, and maybe you'd have an old bicycle and the free wheel wouldn't be catching on it. You know, and you have to hit it. You want a little hammer and give it a nudge. That's it for the dogs that get stuck in the free wheel. And then I got a fixed wheel. I was away with it for a while. I was a fixed wheel. I didn't free wheel. But so you forget about it. And when you stop pedaling, then off you want. That's right,
You drive your knee up into your jaw. And how, can I ask you, I won't keep you much longer, how old were you when you were going out dropping off those messages?
Well, sure, I'd be, I suppose 12 or 13. 12 or 13, yeah.
No very few cars on the road back then?
Oh, it's true. You'd be safe now. You wouldn't want a reflector jacket anyway. That is the fact.
Yeah. Speaking of cars, there's another thing you brought over here. This thing here. This big jack.
That's the time of the horse and cars.
Yeah.
And you'd have to take off the wheels for to graze them. There was no graze snippers that time. You know, you'd have to take off the wheel and graze the axle. You know. And there was no jacks, there was no hydraulic jacks or anything at the time. So you put this in again the side of the car and you live in this lad. And if you ordinarily lift it, you put an extension on here, a pipe, and get further out, and you pull it up, and this lad came down, and then when the pressure come on it, he'd stay down. And you put in your block of a stick then, in under the axle, you nearly want to do it now. And then you lay it back down, and the axle would sit on the block of a stick, and you could walk away then. Now you wouldn't want the car hooked to the horse now, because the horse won't go wrong.
Pure mechanics, but
Yeah.
it worked. Was that from home, Peadar? That
Would it be old?
yeah.
Oh God, I'd say it was back in, I'd say 30s or around the 30s, 40s. To have them, yeah.
Brilliant. You've got another couple of little bits as well. Will you show me?
That's a little. You won't believe there was a bit of history to that now. We had a few fields up at the back of the house, and one was called the stone field, because there was a big stone for the slapping post, where the cattle used to scratch themselves off the post. And I never remember the field being ploughed, but when I was about 20 or 21, I ploughed the field and I harrowed it, and I sowed, well, I think it was barley was sowed in it. And when I was finished harrowing the field, this lad was stuck in the harrow. And I don't know who he was. I think it looks like a nickel well or something. But he was made, the harrow didn't hit that now. But I don't know how he escaped. But it wouldn't have broke as even as that. It must have been a sort of an ink well or when it got low in ink, or I'm not sure now how he is.
And you've got a pair of glasses there. Will you tell us about
Oh
those?
yeah, them belonging to the man that brought Titania'a Palace to Ballynastragh Williams. His name is engraved. His name is engraved there, right on, if you could see, right along there. His name is on it. Williams, yeah.
And was he the carpenter?
I don't know whether he made it, but he was the one that brought it. He could have made it now, I'm not sure. But that's how it belonged to him. Remember, there was a thing in the library in Gorey about it, and they were showing films on him, and he had those glasses. My father-in-law used to work there, and he was Lady Wicklow's first husband, and she was, when he died, she was moving out old things, you know, and she gave them to my father-in-law and said, if there's anything that you can have it, she said, but the rest goes into the bin. So he took them. He must have put them two things out of it.
What was your father-in-law's name?
Michael Hayden.
Michael Hayden.
Lived beside Mick Higgins there next. Yeah.
Good on that. And the last thing, again, it came out of a house. That's the bell thing, Peadar.
That's the bell thing, yeah. I don't know. I was an outside. There must have been. Do you remember there was a bell coming and you could put it outside in the yard. But this must have been before that. Was ran a little handle on it. There's 2 batteries inside in it, and they were 1 and 9pence each. The price was on it.
Now,
and if you were going to a different part of the house or out in the yard or something, you must have brought. There was no way you could answer the phone, but you could hear a ringing, butcher. You know, it's probably there wasn't the ringing or wasn't loud enough. If you were away from, you wouldn't hear the phone.
Where did that come out, Peadar?
That came out of Esmonde. That came out of Ballynastragh. Them the both those.
And is Ballynastragh House? That's burnt. It's gone, is it?
Yeah.
That's burnt down.
Yeah. That was in 1923, wasn't it?
So we've got a bell
Year of
from
Independence.
yeah, we've got a bell from Ballynastragh House, and we've a photo album today from Ballynastragh House.
Sorry.
And we've a photo album as well, haven't we?
Yeah.
They're brilliant. Listen, thanks a million for bringing
Not at all.
bringing
Not
it
at all.
to us.
Thank
Thanks,
you
Peadar.
very much.
So I have a few telegrams, but the 2 that stand out, I won't go through all of them, is there's 2 from the 21st of September 1917, and the envelope and everything, and they would have been received by my great uncle in Dublin, and one was sent by my mother's first cousin from Titania'a to Dublin. So in the early hours of the 21st of September 1917, there was the Crinoids explosion in Arklow, and my great uncle Michael worked there, and it was a night shift, so he was working there that night. So his niece got the news first in Titania'a, and she sent a telegram to her father, which was Michael, who worked in Crinoids, his brother Patrick in Dublin, and that was at 4 o'clock in the afternoon on the Saturday. So it happened late Friday night, and the telegram was sent at 4 o'clock in the afternoon on Saturday, and it said Mick injured by explosion, wire Rafferty, and that was from Sarah. And then the next one that was sent was from my grandfather, and that would have been Michael's brother also, John Kinsley, Patrick. And that was sent at 10 to 6, so 2 hours later. And that was brother killed in explosion at Arklow, come at once. So again, like what Peadar said, there was always bad news on a telegram. And I remember my mother always telling me as well that a lot of the families, so it was decided that they were always going to be interned and buried in the one grave in Arklow, which there is a monument there and there is a grave, but a lot of the families insisted on them bringing them a coffin or something back to their home place. So my great uncle was brought back to Curragh to be buried, and it was just sand in the coffin. So the bodies were never found. So that's the story behind those two particular. And that's him there. The second one in on the left. That's the photograph I have of Michael that died.
And
so
what's
that's
the photograph is of a football match team, is it?
yeah, and I don't know much about that, to be honest. That's Hibernian Nights in Dublin. So he and I was always told he went to Dublin first and then came home to work in Arklow, and he stayed in Arklow and he worked the night shifts in the factory. And they were all very proud of him, seemingly, because he was the youngest and he had this big job. There was over 3,000 people working there, and there wasn't many there that night. Obviously, it was overnight. But that's it. That's the connection to the past of people you don't know in your family. Yeah.
Do you have time to show us a few other bits in the...
Yeah, there's just an awful lot of telegrams, all from, there's one from 1925. This one is just saying, receive the wire, don't rush yourself, end of week, time enough. So obviously there was probably one before that. So that was a really quick text message you can send now, but obviously there was a lot to it back then. This one was 1924. Merry Christmas to all. Love, Mother. And actually this one came from America. So there was another brother of that family. There was 9 of them in America. And that was my mum's uncle Phil, and he sent that from Bridgeport in Connecticut in America. So Merry Christmas to all, with love, Mother, from Phil. A lot of telegrams. Some of these are bad news. That's another one to my great uncle Patrick in Dublin, who he worked there. Mother dead, funeral Monday 1 o'clock. Imagine receiving that. Yeah, so and there's another one, father dead, and that's it. That's from 1928. And
can I just recall then, these belong to you. How did you get your hands on all these telegrams?
So these were kept by my mother's cousin in Titania'a, who they lived on Barton Street there, and Patrick, that lived in Dublin, would have received these and kept them. And he obviously brought them home to that house in Titania'a. So they must have meant something special to him to be kept. And then his daughter, Gertrude Gensler, kept those. And then when my mum was clearing out our house when she passed away, my mum kept them. And then my mum gave them to me. So I have them now.
A whole biscuit tin full of stuff.
Yeah, they're not all, like there's a lot there. There's other receipts, and that's a receipt from an undertaker from it was 1958. This would have been their father Patrick actually. So this Patrick must have been very special in their life, because they've kept a lot about him. So when he died, that was T. Dial Undertaker in 1958, and the price of it was £18, price of the coffin probably, and the funeral. That's another telegram. 1928, grandfather dead, burying Saturday 12 o'clock, and that was from Evelyn, which would have been another sister of Gertrude's. Anne died this morning, another telegram. So they were obviously very special to be kept, I think, weren't they?
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's all very morbid, sorry.
No. And photographs as well, I see.
There's a lot of photographs. The Gertrude I'm talking about, I'll show you who she is. There's a lot of these are really, really old. This would have been from America, from further back in the really early 1900s, when my mum's great aunt Eliza went to America, and this was one of her boys. And we've made contact recently with these that we never knew about. But that's a picture of the Gertrude when she was a child. Now, I actually can't put a date on that, but it's very, very old. I don't know. Like, she died she would have been a very old woman when she died in the 80s. So I don't know what, she was a child there, so I don't know what age that is. But there's just a box of photos and memories from all that side of the family, I suppose, in this.
There's a book in that box.
In here?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that book here is a rent book for house and shop on Barton Street. So that family owned a couple of houses there, and they also had butchers there. It was Edward Byrne Butchers. That's who my great uncle married there. So this is a rent book. So 6 months rent on the shop is that £7 and 10,
yeah.
£7 and 10. And it just goes on.
What period is from that from?
So that's the dated 1945, the rent book. There was an awful lot of this. There was an awful lot of stuff kept. I think now I know where I got my hoarding from, because there was a lot of stuff that wasn't kept. Obviously, at the time, they didn't think it was worth keeping, but now looking back, it probably was, you know. I don't know what else to pick out here now, to be honest. There's a lot there.
You're all right.
Premium receipt book. I don't actually know anything about this, but this was one of the girls that lived there. I don't know what this is. Some people might know what this is. Is it something to do with their pension or something way back in... I'm just trying to see what year that is. I don't know what the year is now actually on that.
Well, maybe what we might do is, if we have time, we might let people have a little look around and look at stuff and offer their opinions and stuff.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, exactly. There's more stuff in there that a lot of people might know what they are that I actually don't. So I'm only kind of on a journey of searching all this stuff now and researching it. And that's something really as well, as this wild woodbine cigarettes that was found in the house. So I can just imagine it's probably old, but they're tiny cigarettes if they were cigarettes. So that's basically all I have to say on that.
Brilliant,
Yeah.
lovely. Thanks
That's all
a
I
million.
know about it anyway.
Thanks a million. Sylvester, what did you bring with you?
Oh, I brought 4 items. I'll look at this one here first, which is a curiosity to me more than anything else. It's a hand mowing bar. Now, I never used it. I got it from a man who was an old gardener, who got it from a woman that he used to do work for, and she must have used it for maybe cutting little bushes or little hedges, but you wouldn't cut much with it, you know. I never sharpened it. I was always afraid to sharpen it in case my children, one of them was here, might cut a finger off or something, you know. It's a curiosity. It was actually made in Denmark. It's on it somewhere. Yeah, I saw where it was made in Denmark. I don't know where it is now. But you can lock it like that.
So will you lock that there now, because I don't want to see you put your finger off.
It won't move once you lock it.
That's a lovely oak.
Interesting, isn't it?
Gorgeous. What else do you have?
Well, now, the rest of the items I'll explain myself first. I come from a family of farmers and butchers. And both my grandfather's family and my grandmother's family were butchers. You may have heard of the name of Cosgrave Builders in Dublin. Quite big builders. Well, my grandmother was a Cosgrave, and they had butcher shops in Dublin. And we were in Bray. We were farmers in Kiltiernan, and they had butcher shops in Bray. Now, I was with a man up in Enniskerry. He was closing up his shop, but he was right beside Powers Court in Enniskerry. And he used to do a lot of the killing for Lord Powers Court, if he wanted a heifer killed or a couple of sheep killed, that kind of thing. And I was up and he was closing up his place, and he said, "Oh, do you want those things there?" he said to me. And he gave me that. Now, as I said to some man earlier on, every hurling man in Wexford would know about poleaxing. But that's a poleaxe. And it was used in the butchering trade, but it wasn't designed by the butchering trade. It was designed by the army. And back in time, everything was done with horses. And horses broke their legs, and horses, there were dray horses that were pulling carts around the place. They'd go down to get a heart attack or whatever on the road, and they'd have to be dealt with on the road. So if there was a local butcher who could come in quickly and polish off the horse, he'd do it. Otherwise, they'd have to send to. There were knackeries in different parts. I think there's one quite local here as well. But they would come out and they would use the poleaxe, this part here, which would be sharpened. It's hollow, and there's a little notch here where when you hit the head, if you didn't have how would you call it, the channel down here and open, if you hit the head of the horse or the head of the cow or whatever you're hitting, it would just bounce back because the air would push it back. So when you have that here, the bit of the brain that would go a bit crude, but the bit of the brain would come out and you'd put the animal unconscious. Okay? Now, the axe, what would you do with the axe? Huh? No. An awful lot of horses there were companies that had a big number of horses for dray purposes, pulling carts around. And the army had a lot of horses. And institutions had a lot of horses. And they didn't brand the horses like they branded the cows. They branded the horses on the hoofs. Okay? So if a horse went down on the street, they used the poleaxe to put him unconscious, and then they would bleed them. Now, technically speaking, in the Slaughter of Animals Act 1935, you must stun the animal before you kill it. So using a poleaxe, or the next thing I'm going to come to, a gun, that only stuns the animal, doesn't kill it. The actual killing is when you bleed it. Okay? So what the army used to do was, a horse would go down, someone would come on and kill it on the street or whatever. What they do with the axe was they chop off the hoof and bring the number back to the station or back to the barracks, and there they could write off that horse is definitely dead, not going anymore. It was a stock control system. So it was the axe for cutting off the hoof with the number on it, and the pole for rendering the animal unconscious. Okay? Now that's now I think I remember there was there is some writing on it here. I can't see what it is now. I never bothered too much about it. I used it once or twice, all right. And the reason I used it was when you're in the slaughterhouse and you had these captive bolt pistols. This is the modern gun, which doesn't shoot out a bullet, but just shoots a bolt out of the barrel, and it goes so far out and into the brain. But sometimes they jammed, and if you shot the beast and it jammed, it didn't it didn't knock the animal unconscious, but what you had on your hands there was a very wild animal, extremely wild animal, injured. And you know how dangerous that can be. So then, if the gun jammed, you had to get something handy to finish off the animal. So a lot of slaughterhouses had one of these standing in the corner of the slaughterhouse and never used. That one there was used all right. I put that bit of a handle on it because the old handle was all full of woodworms, so I just stuck that on it for the purpose of it. But that's a poleaxe. Now, after the poleaxe, we had guns. Not captive bolt pistols, but guns. And here's one here, and it says on it, can you read that? I haven't got my glasses with me there.
The blind leading the blind here now, I'm telling you that.
Oh yeah. I think it's the Royal Society of Prevention of Cruelty to Animals.
RSPCA is written on.
RSPCA. This is the prevention of cruelty to animals, which is interesting. Now, this fires a free bullet, a very dangerous thing. But how you loaded it was, you, let's see now, yeah. I'm trying to say, oh yes, here we are. You took that off and you put your bullet in, right? Now I'm going to show you the other end of it. That's the end that will go up against the head of the animal. But you notice there are notches all around it. Those notches are for to disperse the air. When you put the bullet in and you fire, the bullet is going out and is pushing out the air in front of it. So that'll disperse the air around. If not, it'll just fire back at you. You know, and you won't knock the animal out. And God knows where the bullet would go. It's extremely dangerous. So you loaded your gun. You got that back in. Okay. Then you pulled the trigger back. Now where would you pull the trigger? You pull the trigger down here and you lean in. You wouldn't get close to the end. There's no bullet in it, you're all right. And there's a little hook here and you pull it from here. You can actually, you could cock it and you could lean over a wall and shoot it, fella, if you wanted to. But it gave a free bullet, and of course that was very dangerous, you know. So, and also if you have an animal that fell and broke its leg or something happened to it, and you try to approach it, it'll be vicious. So you had to be able to step back a bit, and that was the idea of the long arm. So you could step back and lean in, and pull your trigger, and render the horse, generally horses, unconscious, and then you'd have to bleed them. Now their cattle, of course, would break a leg, and all those things would happen. And a lot of them would happen out in the street because there was an awful lot of horses. Well, I know, I was reared in Dublin. I was born on a farm in Dublin 4. That sounds ridiculous. A dairy farm, by the way. And where it was, as you know, University College Dublin. Across the road from that, there's an estate called Woodbine. Well, that Woodbine was where I was born. My father and my grandfather's dairy farm. So, and that's in Dublin 4 today. There was no Dublin 4 then. But that's where I come from, and I was involved with the, I said, in the farming business and the butchering business. Okay, so that's the gun with a free bullet. After that came I don't have one here. I had one. I gave it a loan to a fellow and I haven't got it back yet. I doubt if I ever will. I just brought another little item here, which it's very old. It's a chopper, basically. So when you were killing your cattle in particular, we use this for, you killed them and you hung them up by the hind legs, and you had to split them down the middle, down the back, and you did it with this. That's how you. And you had to be very careful when you came to the end, because when you came to the end of the neck, the two bones got very loose and they'd wobble. Now, if you didn't stand well apart and keep your leg out of the way, you could do a lot of damage to your leg, and a lot of people did. You know? So that was used for that. So, there are my 4 items for a little bit of butchering, you know. So if there's anything, if you want to ask any questions on it, I'll try and answer. If I don't know the answer, I'll tell you a lie.
What caliber bullet?
I think it was a 3.5, would that be right?
Could well be, yeah.
I don't know.
3 or a 22.
Well, I'll put it like this to you. Have you measuring tape? Yeah. You measured the bore of that?
303 or
something like that, yeah. Yeah. It's just, when you ask me, 3 comes to mind, you know.
Brilliant. Come here.
No.
Thanks a million for that.
You're welcome.
Brilliant. And your name is Sylvester Byrne.
Sylvester Byrne, yeah.
Brilliant. Lovely. What did you bring first of all?
Oh, a lovely picture here belonging to my husband's grandmother. It's been hanging in our house since she passed away years ago. 1890 is the date on it. And this also belongs to one of her sons that died young, Shem Kelly. I think that's a long
And
time.
where was she from?
Well, she lived in Coleraine all her life. I think she originally came from up Curragh, up that direction. She was a Doyle, an O'Neill. But she lived in Coleraine. Reared her family in Coleraine, you know. And this is one of her irons. She used to iron. She always ironed the doctor's shirt. She worked for old Dr. Liddy in Coleraine, and she used to do a beautiful job ironing all his shirts and put him in a case to bring him back up to her.
And do you remember these being used?
I remember her ironing the shirts after I getting married and moving to Coleraine. I remember her doing that job. Yeah.
And was she using that iron back then?
Well, I'm not sure about that one, but I think it was something like that. But yeah, because I think. And this was a skillet, little skillet pan belonging to her.
Same woman again.
As well, the same woman, yes. And these were out of her dresser, from her dresser.
Where are they from? Are they Arklow or are they?
I don't think so. I think you see Carragh, Rohan that. No, this one is from Arklow. She had a lot of those in her dresser as well. Some jug. There is more of them below.
Just remind us again, what was her name?
Annie Kelly. Annie Kelly. From Coleraine. And these are out of the old Coleraine Inn that is now turning into a housing estate in the village. These two were found in the ditch. The old Coleraine Inn, 1798. It's all gone now. There's new houses going up there. And these were found in it.
And can you show me them? Lift them up there. That's a jam pot, is it?
Well, no, we don't know. It was found full of muck, and this was in it as well.
And is there any writing in them at all? Is there more in them?
I don't think so, no. Half pint. No, there's no writing.
Lovely.
No.
And that pub is gone.
Them two. That was the old Coleraine Inn. And then 1798, rebellion time, seemingly. And this is a Holy Communion certificate, my own.
Back away.
I
Hold
got
it up there first.
in my mother's house.
So, in Carlow.
Yep.
And the 4th of June, 1955. I shouldn't have said that bit, should I?
That doesn't matter. Doesn't matter.
That's lovely. Do you remember that day, do you?
I think I do. I remember my father on a bicycle anyway, and just about, yeah. No, just about, no.
And did all your little friends that day get a little cert like that?
They would have had, yeah, they would have had. Yeah. This was in Tinryland School. Yeah, Tinryland. Yes. And
what else do you have there beside him?
this is belonging to a forester, Pat McGrath, Hullen. He used to work in the forestry. That was his mug that he used to have boiling his tea. When he'd make his tea. And he had that. And I got that.
And where is Cullen?
Hullen's over Ballyfad, about 3 miles over Ballyfad. And my son bought his house. That's how I came on that.
And do you remember him drinking tea out of that?
No, I wouldn't have had. I remember serving him large bottles of stout in the pub.
He wouldn't drink out of that?
Oh, he would have. Yeah, and he had a can as well to boil the tea. Make tea. No, Mary. Yeah. And I think this is for sharpening knives, or a penknife for sharpening knives or something. I was told. I don't know. It was all in one piece. I think he owned that as well.
Did the man ever marry?
No. He's bachelor. Rode his bicycle. I was tell you he'd go home to boil the cabbage and the bacon and drink large bottles of stout. Is that right? Yeah. And that's all old money.
Show me some of the old
but these are the, what do you call them, lads? Michael? I used to sell them when I was in the pub. Sweepstakes tickets.
Go way over
Yeah, sweepstakes tickets, yeah. And that is my 21st bit of jewellery that I got when I was working.
Did you run a pub, can I ask?
No, I worked in one.
Worked in a pub?
Yeah, all my life. Served me time.
So come here, I'm going to pull you back.
14 years of age.
We'll go slow.
Yep.
Tell me, these are the little sweepstake receipts.
Yes.
And for someone who, what were they? I'll explain to me, what were they?
Hospital sweepstake tickets. It was a big, like a lotto, wasn't it? Oh. Like a lottery now, and it was done in a hospital in Dublin. What hospital was it done in, Mary Darcy? What hospital was it done in?
Oh, no, it was the hospital sweepstakes, all right.
1984. And I have the names of the people that used to buy the tickets from me on them. On them. All the names. Yeah, it was like a lotto, like now. I used to sell those. I worked in Burns an inch.
I also noticed you've got old money here.
Old money, yes. I don't know what that one is there now. I can't see on it.
Let's see. Oh, it's an old English one with a crown on it, yeah?
Oh, is it?
Victoria or someone. Old money.
Tens.
And you've got the old punt.
Fives.
And I'm the old herself.
Pieces of it. Pieces. Yeah.
And the other thing I noticed you got there, you've got the pound to euro converter. Show us that. Lift it up and show me that, will you? If anyone remembers these.
That was a terrible thing when Dad came in with an awful job trying to learn it. So yeah.
So that was given to use in the pub?
Yes. To have beside the till, so as you'd know what to give people for their money.
And there was no computerised tills then, were there?
That one there. No, you just had to
figure it out.
We used to put 10 euros in a bag and put the same amount of euros so as you'll know what to take out of that to give change. It was complicated, like the computers.
And you, tell us that. What have you got there?
There's an envelope. It was the 17th of the 7th in 2017. I don't know why now. That was, I remember Alice Finn, I think, used to work in the post office in Coleraine, and she was always great for these special dates, the 5th of the 5th, 25 and all that. And I got that.
Okay. Well, what's the little book?
That is a little book. Dave Moynihan used to play music in Coleraine Gardeners, where I worked, and he gave me for my birthday Dave Moynihan and Miles O'Reilly. Dave Moynihan of Cumolin, isn't it? He lives Moynihan's. John Ferns, sorry. Yep.
And do you remember the man Miles O'Reilly?
I do.
He was a singer from.
Tall, tin man. Yes, I do.
He was a traditional singer, wasn't he?
Yeah. Well, he used to always sing with Dave Moynihan. He used to always be with him.
That man has passed away. I know his son.
Yeah.
So I'd love to see that now.
Moynihan. Yeah.
That's lovely.
Yeah.
And what other bits and pieces have you got there? So you've got little airplanes here. What are they?
My son put these together when they were teenagers, and they've been up on a shelf, and I just took them down. What are they made out of? Years ago, you'd buy these for Christmas, and they'd stick them together with some kind of glue. That's me, whatever. Yeah.
And can I ask you, what are we talking there? 1980s, are we?
78, yeah, the 80s, 84, that, yeah. I'd say so. So there's Dave Moynihan.
And they're the Moynihans from Ferns. Yes.
Yeah, only Dave would be in that. There's Dave there, the back.
The O'Reilly man's not in that, is he?
Tall tin man, I don't think so.
Brilliant.
Anyway, and that's a picture of Kyle Near, and somebody had that here last week, or something like that. Last week here, they told me.
That was the Kyle Near the pipe band, or the pipe and drum band, yeah. And what else do you have?
And that's a soccer club at Burns. Joe Hughes, Lord of Mercy on him, was passed on, and that was an old picture we had. And that's about all, I suppose.
What's that?
Me being a good girl in primary school. Primary school.
Maeve, what did you bring for us?
I took this tablecloth, precious, and It was done by my grandmother's,
Your
no, my
great-grandmother.
mother's grandmother
Yeah, her great grandmother.
in sometime in the 1800s.
And she
And
made.
it's hand done, all hand done. And that's even the lace. It's gone raggedy now. But
No, it's not. This is Mount Mellick embroidery. The embroidery on the cloth is Mount Mellick embroidery. And this here is Irish crochet. The edge of it is done in Irish crochet, so that's actually crocheted with a fine crochet hook and very thin cotton.
and it was passed on to me, so I treasure it.
And how did Mount Mellick in County Laois end up down this part of the country?
I probably went to school with something down there. I don't know.
Mount Mellick embroidery was done around the country. It wasn't just in Mount Mellick. It's the same as Irish crochet. Irish crochet was taught in different areas, you know. So they're heritage crafts. So they would have happened at different times. Do you know what I mean? So in different areas as well. So Mount Mellick was always white on white. So that's one of the reasons you would know. Looking at it, Mount Mellick and the different stitches.
You look at the back and we can see the
and you know it's hand done because the back of it is so, you know it's done.
You know it's hand done.
Now the edging on it was added to it at a later stage because it's machine sewed onto it. So I don't actually have an idea when that might have happened. But it would have been on an older sewing machine, so it could have been any time in the late 1800s, early 1900s.
And this would probably be decades before the main.
It's sometime in the 1800s. Well, if it's May's great grandmother, your mother was born in.
My mother was born in 1901.
So her grandmother
before her.
So it could have been the early 1800s. And because that's done on a very, it was always done on a very heavy cotton. It was originally kind of a denim-y cotton, a white denim-y cotton, and it's very hard to get that material today. But it's a very solid material, you know.
And was it used at home at all?
No, I tried to put it on the table, and I said no.
Something
I
might
was
happen.
afraid something would happen to it.
It possibly was used back in the day.
Oh, probably. But that was probably done when there was no lights or, you know.
And do you have any idea of like even the age of the woman when she was doing it?
I haven't a clue. No, I don't know. My mother's mother died when she was 2, so I had no granny. I don't know what age I'd have it.
Gorgeous.
I mean, I'm near 100 myself. So
She's 88. Don't mind her. She's not near 100 yet.
so you know how.
You've a while to go, May.
Yeah. And what else did you bring along, May?
No, I didn't bring anything else. Just that.
Well, that is absolutely.
And that's from Kildare now. That came from Kildare.
But I'm living in Wexford. I'm a Wexford woman.
You come down from Kildare today to be here?
No.
She was born and raised in Kildare.
Ballymore Eustace.
But there's Wexford blood in you.
Wexford blood in me. Married a Wexford.
And can I ask you a question as well? Did you the name for your great grandmother?
My great grand was, oh God, I think she was Mary as well. Downs, D-O-W-N-S. Yeah.
That's lovely. Thanks a million for bringing it along to us.
Thank you.
Gorgeous. Woohoo. Stephen, what did you bring?
I went looking for something in the attic to bring here today, and I couldn't find it, so I found these. And I have a question for people, and I asked my neighbour and she didn't know. These are call cards, phone call cards. And I don't know where they're used in the country or only in Dublin. Does anyone ever? They were. My neighbour didn't know. So for anyone who didn't use them, probably the younger people, these were finished in around 1995, 30 years ago. That was the last of them. And when I had a look at them, they brought back memories. There's like a social history in them. We just see them probably in their day as pictures, photographs. But in fact, when I had a look at some of them, one of them was the last time that Aircom sponsored the Rose of Tralee. The Rose Chalet is still going, but Aircom sponsored it, and the last one was 1995. They did 4 years of it. The one beside it was Garth Brooks in 1994. And then it was a great moment in Irish musical history, apparently. I'm not a fan of Garth Brooks. And he failed in his last attempt to come back. Am I correct in that? There was
second last.
The second last. Okay, so there is a social history. There's an awful lot of them with Irish mythology, and a lot of us would have remembered from school. I had a great school teacher who taught all about Niamh and Tiernan Og, the children of Lear. The children. There's a lot of those. So there's one there somewhere in it. The 8th Women's World Hockey Championship. There's probably a load of big fans of women's world hockey here now, but it was held in Dublin every second year. And it was the only time it was held in Dublin. Never held again in Dublin. So there's a kind of a social history in the cars themselves. I had a look. I googled eBay and whatever, and some of them are actually worth a few bob. I won't tell you which one because they won't be there when I come back. No, I'm joking. So some of them are worth much more than face value than they ever were when you see them for sale. So that's that. And beside it, in the box in the attic, I found this, which most of us would be familiar with. Is there any very young people here? I've seen this on a TV or YouTube or something, where they gave this type of phone to 2 young people in America and asked them to use it to make a phone call. And they didn't know how to. We all remember that sound. Was anyone any good at tapping the phone to get the free calls? Did anyone remember how to do that? So they're probably only about 30 years old, each of the objects. I don't know the age of this. I think 1980 on the bottom.
Was that telephone from your own home place?
No, I actually found a label on it. I think somebody acquired it from an office or something because there was like an extension number on the front. And I know my mother was from Clifton in Galway, and when I would ring there, my uncles and cousins, I used to have to ask for Clifton 54, but that was before when the wind-up phones were going. But this, I think, came after that again. But the extension number was on the phone, yeah.
Now, when I have a dub in front of me, in front of the camera, and you mentioned tapping phones.
Yes.
Now, sure, listen, it's all history and it's all folklore.
Yes.
Can you tell us, what was this tapping the phone thing?
Okay, tapping the phone was good if you were good at it. So you had to remember this: 999 is free on every phone. So if you tapped the phone, all the 9s were free. So you could turn the 9. You could actually put your finger in the 9. That was free. So if the number you were dialing, at that time there was 5 or 6 numbers. So if the number had 2 9s, that you just turned it. If the number had a 1, that was free because you had to dial the operator. 10 was the operator. So the 1 was free. And if it had a 0, that was free. So all you had to be able to tap was the 2s and 3s and 4s. So yeah, we'd say you did 1, 4, 9, 0, 2, and you tap the 2, and so on. And eventually you'd get it. So I'm told. I never did.
Carmel, what do you have for me?
I have some items from my home house where I was reared, Rat Pierce House, where my brother lives now. So a lot of this stuff is over 100 years old. And I remember as a child, it would be taken out for the hay drawing and the thrashing when the neighbours would be in and getting the dinner and the tea in the evening. The ham and tomato would be the supper in the evening, and these things would be used. This is a croat set where you had your mustard was in this one, and different sauces and vinegar, and that's very old.
And these teapots, delph teapots, were used as well for the tea. I think that was a wedding present my grandmother got, and she was married in 1915. And that's a butter dish and a salt cellar that would be very old as well, and some plates from Pierce. And these are Jim's mother's plates, and again they would be over 100 years old from Castlelands, Kylenear. And this teapot and water jug here, it was won by Margaret Somers' aunt, Nellie Murphy, on the 1st of October 1949 at a carnival in Shillelagh. And I was born that day. And she always said to me, God rest her soul, said to me, you can't cut anybody about your age, because I know the age you were born. So when poor Nellie died, she died suddenly. And we went up to her house, and her niece, Mary Carl, gave me the teapot. She said Nellie always said she won them the night you were born. So they're very precious. But my children playing football inside broke the lid and broke the spout. But anyhow, I still have them from Nellie Murphy, God rest her. And that mug is my eldest boy. He's 51, and actually May Darcy got that from him in Arklow Pottery all those years ago. He's 51. So that was Barry's. And the last item is this sliotar. And no insults to the Kilkenny man if he's still here, no insults now. But it was the 96 Leinster final. And a sliotar went into the crowd. And one of our sons, he was then 10 years old, Tom, he caught the sliotar. But this big Kilkenny man wrestled with him and took the sliotar from him. And of course the child was distraught. And I went into work the next day and I rang South East Radio and I spoke to Alan Corcoran. And I told him what happened. And Alan, I said the lad was still sulking because the ball was gone. So Alan arranged for the Wexford team at the next training session to get a sliotar, and each of them signed it. Now that's from 96. Now I know it's probably not old enough for what you want, but that's where that sliotar came from.
It's all signed by the Wexford team?
All signed by the Wexford team. But not the last All-Ireland winning team. And the subs all signed it.
Way over that.
Yeah. And it's more precious because it came about that way rather than the ball going into the crowd and the poor child losing it. But anyhow, I can still see him, a big burly man, and he took the ball. Anyhow,
that's gorgeous. They're gorgeous. Will you do me a favour? Will you just gently lift up a few of the objects and let me look at them, because they're absolutely lovely.
They seemingly always had a coffee pot and a teapot came as a set, and that would be a hot water pot. Yeah, that would have been a wedding present now. Good wedding present at that time. Yeah. And that's sugar bowl and jug and a jam dish. And then that's the crude set. And that looks to have the shape of a saucer now. I'd say it probably was a tea set one time. That's belonged to Jim's mother, God rest her. Yeah.
And the lovely little cup from Arklow.
Oh, the little cup, yeah, with Barry on it.
That's absolutely gorgeous. Yeah. Especially made for him. Oh,
and well, she bought as a set. May was in the pottery at the time.
They're gorgeous.
Yeah.
And what attracts you to all these objects?
I'm just interested and Jim, my husband, is the same. We're just interested in all stuff, and I was delighted to see Mick Higgins and the fiddle for sawing the haystack. I remember that well, like at home. Anything that was produced there, like I remember them being used as a child. I'm showing my age now, but anyhow.
And when you touch an object like that, does it bring back memories?
Oh, it does, of course. Absolutely. Yeah, no, I great. I don't know what will happen when I'm gone. I'd say the chaps won't want them at all, but anyhow, I like all that sort of stuff.
Gorgeous. Thanks a million for bringing them along.
Not at all, you're welcome. Thank you.
Jimmy Murphy, what do you have?
I have various items here, Michael, going back to years. That are probably interesting enough. I could start with that mobile phone, which is one of the, I won't say it's the first one, but it's quite big. NEC, I think, was the brand of it, and it was 088, I think, was the prefix of the phone number. But anyway, I think it was belonging to a brother-in-law of mine in Ballynastragh. And I ended up with it somewhere and don't know how. I hope he's not looking for it back.
And come here, Jimmy, what year was that, do you know?
I think it's 1993. Looking up the internet. I think it could be now. Maybe it's younger, maybe it's not, I don't know. That's a little clay pipe in its own case. Has a standard type shank, but it was a kind of a special one, whereas years ago there is a name or something printed on it there. The ordinary clay pipes, I think everyone had them, but this was a kind of a special one. You had in 1987, this is a kind of a starter for all the computer games, and this was a little handheld game called Curragh King in 1987.
And how do you get your hands on that?
That's belonging to one of my children, which that's how that came about.
And Jimmy,
Yeah.
I could hear it beeping earlier on.
Yes, it's really.
Still working.
Now, it's working away, and there's you're the, I think, the lad on the right, and the other lad then is the game itself. So there's a battle there, jumping and boxing and all that sort of thing. Okay. So I better turn it off, or it'll be going the whole day. Now, that there, this is an interesting item insofar as in the gentry houses years ago, they had wine cellars. And the wine cellars were obviously full of wine bottles and there for a long time, and the dust gathered on them. And when they'd be sent down, the maid or the butler would be sent down to get the bottle of wine, they would brush off the neck of the bottle with the brush and then snip the wire to take off the cork.
Again, where did you get that?
At that, my father owned that and would have got it from some of the houses that he worked in years ago. Right. And that compass, I think, is 19 and 18. I think it would have been in around, it could have been used in the, well, around the time of the First World War.
And again, can I ask again about the object? Where did you get it? Or?
I came from stuff that my father had. I'm not sure then the origin of it.
You let me have a little look at it there.
Yes.
And he passed them down to you?
Oh yeah, well when he passed on then sure, everything, there was no one else in my family, so everything came to me then, I suppose.
Where was your father from? Was he Ballynastragh, Kilrush or somewhere?
No, he's from Asgard, Money Asgard, Gorey. And that's a little magazine that used to be handed out every so often in the FCJ Girls National School years ago. Little magazine that the nuns used to give to the girls going home. Could be a monthly thing or I don't know what, but the Eldest it was called. If anyone ever heard tell of it.
Little religious magazine?
Little religious magazine that was given to the girls every so often. And that's a cutthroat razor. You wouldn't want to have any drink on you when you be using it. And that's an Osram map of Ireland. You'd say it was going to fall asunder, but it's linen, I think, backed paper.
Now, that's Osram who make the lights, is that right?
Yeah, and they made all the bulbs for the cars and all those times.
So how old is the map, Jimmy, do you know?
Don't know, Michael. I don't know, unfortunately, but I'd say it's back 50s, I'd imagine.
But made by Osram?
Yeah.
There you go. And,
so,
and again, I've been nosy. Where did it come from? Can you tell me?
Again, it's in my family, and my father would have had it, and I'm not quite sure. I'd imagine now it came from some of the places where he worked.
Yeah.
The Echo yearbook, which is interesting enough. There's a lot of stuff in it there. from all about, I presume, yearbooks come out to probably say, give a history of what happened the previous year for different companies and all. But the Echo certainly had a book and all their bits and pieces was in it and advertisements from different things.
And it's from 1923.
1924.
24.
Yeah.
1924.
Which is just as 101 years of age.
I had a little quick look at it there at one stage,
Yeah.
and I could see the accounts of the Civil War and the War of Independence were referenced in it.
Right.
Where there were bridges and roads that were still being prepared.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, now, right.
An
Fair
interesting
enough.
document.
That there is a packet of round playing cards. And it's probably unique, I suppose. Maybe they're not, I don't know, but they're linen-based cards as well, which means I think that there's a material through them. So it'll be good quality. You can see the lines there. That's a chess set that came from England. My aunt married a Dublin man who went to live in London, lived in it for over 50 years. He was always mad about playing chess, and he gave me a book and this chess set, travel chess, to learn from the book and then learn how to play it. But unfortunately, one little lad missing, but we'll hopefully get someone to make one for me.
Did you learn how to play it?
I did. I could play it all right, yeah. There's just a little coin that I got in a whole lot of coins in a second-hand shop last year, I think it was. And it's just an American 5 cent or a nickel. And it's made of 75% copper and 25% nickel. And it was made by came about this man in America. He wanted to enhance the coinage at the time, wanted to make it look better and make it more identifiable with America. So you put the buffalo on one side and put American Indian on the other. Or the Native American, I should say. So that's just that. That's a Polaroid disc camera, which would have been a big upgrade on film, very like a floppy disk that was in the computers years ago. So you have, and it was compact and everything else.
Was that your own, Jimmy?
It is.
Yeah.
And I don't know where I got it in a car boot sale, I think. And I bought these off of the marketplace, this camera off of the marketplace on Facebook there a few weeks ago. And apparently we're looking it up, and it was only in production for 3 years, from 1963 to 66, this particular type of Instamatic Kodak camera. And this one, last of all, is a Polaroid Instamatic, or what is it called? Polaroid land camera, and it take the photograph and you have the photograph instantly. Comes out here at the front. Now, that's what I have, Michael, now for you.
Thanks, Jimmy.
No bother.
Now, Colm Brennan, what have you got?
And just start with a photograph of Asgard II under full sail. It was built, well, first of all, designed and built by Jack Turrell in his yard on the South Quay in Arklow. And while it was being built, Jack got in touch with me through his daughter to see would I be interested in doing a figurehead for it, because he knew that I was at that time mostly working in wood. So Jack had a look at a few of the carvings I'd done in wood, and he said, "You're the guy, all right." So I was quite excited by it because it was really the first kind of a large commission that I got. Just a word about Jack Turrell. He was a very important naval architect. He would have designed gypsy moth
that Francis Chichester sailed right around the world single-handedly. And he was telling me that at one stage when Francis Chichester was quite old, he came over to Arklow while the boat was being built, and he had to be lifted in with the hoist, you know, almost the same hoist you use for lifting invalid people out of a bed. The other notable thing that Jack Turrell designed was a lifeboat for the Lifeboat Association to operate up above the Hebrides, which would be the wildest sea certainly around these islands. And Jack designed that. So they were two notable works. But Jack had actually sailed on this type of vessel, square rigged brigantine. So he knew them intimately. And he was telling me part of the reason why, even during the Second World War, they were still being used. There were wooden vessels, and so were reasonably safe from limpet mines, magnetic mines that would blow up. Well, first of all, fasten onto steel ships and blow them up. So Jack was the guy. So that's one of a series of small photographs of Asgard being built in Arklow. It was eventually launched in 1981, and these are some of the stages of me carving the Asgard figurehead. It was carved in yellow pine. That's at an early stage. A slightly more advanced stage. Here's Jack Turrell beside it, and we got to know one another very well. So one of the things I asked him, could I model a head of him, and I modelled the head in clay and cast it in bronze, and a portrait head. And his daughter now has it. Dorothy now has it. This here would be similar to the photograph that appeared on the front page of the Times just when the figurehead was completed. And really, I can thank that photograph for a whole lot of commissions came as a result of that. So this was a very important job to me. Now, when I had it at that stage, before it was painted and before it was mounted on in fact, there it is, kind of ready to leave my studio. Before it was brought down to Arklow and fitted onto the Asgard. Of course, I was innocent about shipbuilding. I knew about carving, but I was certainly innocent about shipbuilding, and particularly about how figureheads were fastened. So I said to Jack, tell me, how exactly is this fastened up? Because there was a bowsprit going out, like a telegraph pole, going out over it. And he says, the traditional way was about through her belly. So Jack was that kind of man. He's lovely man. So there's more photographs of that there. But while it was at that stage, I decided for myself, I better take a cast of the head and part of detail of it. And so I made a mold from that. I just wanted it before it left my workshop. And I'm thankful I did, because of course, subsequently, we know what happened to poor old Asgard. And I had that initially in plaster, but eventually I cast it, only last year, cast it in bronze in my studio, or in my bronze foundry in Dublin, which my son now owns. It's not mine anymore. So that's just a bronze casting of the head of it's Grania Whale. I'm from Mayo, so they want to know what would I suggest. They were thinking of Monaman MacLair and things like that, and I said, well, Grania Whale or Grace O'Malley, Sea Queen or Sea Pirate, depending on your point of view. That was the only one that I was interested in doing. So that's just the head of it there. So that's the story of and of course subsequently, as you know, the Asgard was met a watery grave in the Bay of Biscay. I have the date. That happened in 2008. So it was launched in 1981 and lost in the Bay of Biscay in 2008 with no loss of life, thankfully. So that's as much as I can tell you about it.
Thanks a million, Colm. Mick Doyle.
Good day, how are you?
What do you have there at home?
I have what's known as a steward ball-bearing horse and cattle clippers. It has a flexible drive, which unfortunately has disintegrated inside, so it won't work. But the principle of it was, one man held this clipping the horse, and another man turned this wheel all day long to keep it turning. There's a reduction gear there, as you can see, and that put the speed to the blades. There's another gear in there, but the chain, it's a linked chain, and the chain has disintegrated inside, so it's locking. So I can't demonstrate how it works. But it was used for clipping horses, and it clipped horses all over the Gorey district for years. I often got welts on my fingers turning that handle. You could be at it for 3 or 4 hours in an evening time.
That's what I was going to ask you, Mick. So you use that?
I did. I think the last time I used it was with Vincie Somers' uncle out in Killowen, and that would have been middle or late 60s. And I was only a chap at the time. But you'd be stood there, and if you didn't keep the speed right, you'd get a clip across the ear for yourself very quick. But
and who was the man operating it, Mick?
Well, my brother Bill and my brother Frank, and the late Ger Furlong from the top of McCurtain Street there beside Seabrook's garage it is now. It originated in, I don't know how it got to Gorey, and I don't know how long it was in Gorey, but when Ger Furlong gave up and retired, he gave it to my brother Bill, and it has been at home. He gave it to me for safekeeping, and it has been in the loft of my garage for the last 40 odd years. I am an antique myself, but Colm Brennan is a great friend of mine, and he said to me, go to Kyle Nearan tomorrow, and I said, sure, I have no antiques to bring, but he said, you're an antique. So he was right in that. But anyway, I got up to the loft this morning to go route to see had I anything to bring, and I saw this in the very back of it, where it has been for at least 40 years. And now, just to show the comparison between that, I also brought the modern one. A one-man job, you plug it in, switch it on, and away you go. Clip your horse. Sometimes you could get one horse, or maybe half a horse out of a set of blades, and then you could get another set of blades and it could clip 20 horses. The blades are fairly expensive, but there's a fella locally here now, Trevor Kelly, who has a machine for sharpening those blades. So you can have your blades resharpened, and you don't have to buy new blades all the time. Like that one there, there could be 15 or 20 sets of blades at home for that. I think there might even be spare blades in here. There we are. What will I see? Is there a specification on them? Yeah, when they were bought, they were €29.99 for one pair of blades. So.
And Mick, can I ask, was that what you worked at, was it?
No. No, I worked at several things. I was in the shoe factory in Gorey for 7 years until that closed, and then I was in nitrogen air until that closed. I was 32 years there. And then I went on the buildings. But you see, horses were always hobby. And my brothers, I have 2 brothers who worked at not Nil Sunday horses their lifetime. One of them worked, in fact the 2 of them worked over here in Burley Manor for Richard Green, the film star who played Robin Hood. And my brother Bill, he's alive still, he's 84, rising 85 now in October, and he never did anything else, only horses. So there was always horses at home, and there are still horses at home, and they still have to be clipped and looked after. My son John, my youngest son now, he has it in his blood as well as the rest of them. If it gets in your blood, it's worse than the sea. You can't get it out.
When I have you there, I'm going to put you on the spot. No. Is Arkle in your head?
Because he surely is.
This is special. Do you have it?
Do you want it?
I want it anyway.
Right, I'm going to tell a small story about 2 of the greatest race horses that were ever lived in our time. Millhouse and Arkle. And this was the story of the race in the King George VI Cup. And it happened in the springtime, the year was 64. English men were making pounds and fivers by the score. He beat him in the hollows and he beat him on the bumps, and a pair of fancy fitlocks he showed him o'er the jumps. Oh, he's English, English, English as you've seen. A little bit of Arab stock and more from Stephen's Green. Now take a look at Millhouse and stick out your chest with pride. He's the greatest steeplechaser in the whole world, in the English countryside. Then a quiet man called Draper who lived on the Emerald Isle, he said, that horse of yours called Millhouse, he shows a bit of style. But I have a little fellow, and Arkle is his name. Put your money where your mouth is and we'll play the racing game. Well, the English racing gentlemen all laughed at fit to burst. You've tried before, Tom Draper, but then you came off worse. If you think your horse can beat us, you're running short on rain, for it's Millhouse that you're up against, and not those beastly Danes. Well, Arkle now was 5-2, Millhouse's money on. They're off, and dear, I do believe the champion has it won. There are other horses in the race to test the great chap's might, but dear me, it's plain to see, the rest are out of sight. 5 to go and still he comes, great glory in his stride. He is the greatest steeplechaser in the whole world wide. And 3 to go and still he comes, he leads with 20 lengths. Brave Arkle's putting in a show, poor chap, he's all but spent. With 2 to go, Brave Arkle is cutting down the lead, but it's all over, barely shouting, for he hasn't got the speed. We're on the run up to the last, my God, and we hold out. Will you look behind you, Willie Robinson, man, what are you about? We're at the last and over, and Pat Taff is more in hand, and he's passing English Millhouse, the finest in the land. Big God, he has us beaten, and what can we English say? But the ground was wrong, and the race was long, too early in the day.
So, Margaret, what did you bring today?
I brought this little record player, which I was given as a fairly young child, about 10 years of age, given to me by a young man, believe it or not, who was upgrading his from this to a fancier one. So I have it since I was about 10, which is 60 years ago. And I'm sure if we put a plug on it and could get the little needle, as somebody used to call it in my old day, a nail, little fella to go in there, it would still work away, I'm sure.
And do you remember listening to records on it?
Oh, I do. Yeah, I had some records, still have some records, and played away on them.
What were you listening to?
Oh God almighty, Dickie Rock probably, anyway. Would have been my favourite. Everything and anything, but Dickie would have been first, last and in the middle. So that was it.
He kept it in great order.
Yeah, I've kept it ever since. So that's it. It's
gorgeous.
Fair memories of the man that, well, the man is still alive that gave it to me. He was so generous to give it to me when he got a newer model, and he upgraded.
And was there a record player in the house at home when you were a child? Your own
There
home?
was, yeah. It was the old one with the
horn.
The what?
Horn. With the horn.
With the horn. Oh no, there wasn't. It wasn't like that. I don't know. I forget now, but we did have an old one as well.
Yeah.
So.
What else do you have?
Now, and in my rush, I left behind a part of this. There's a teapot to match this, which sits on that, and this is, I presume it's the water jug, I think. Somebody said coffee pot, but I think it's a water jug. And the teapot is lovely as well. And in our rush coming back down, got left behind.
And where did you get that?
And it belonged to Vincie's mother. Do you know anything about it?
Haven't a clue.
Don't know anything about it.
Before my time?
Before his time. It could have been a wedding present, but it equally could have been, as I bought in a shop someplace or other, as a bargain. She'd have gathered up little bits and pieces. And say, like these cups, she was a woman for going to, at that time, jumble sales and all these kind of things were big, and she'd have an eye for something nice.
That was your mother, Vincent?
Yeah.
Did you use them, or were they on a dresser or something?
Oh no, they were only ornaments.
Ornaments.
Dust catcher.
Dust catchers. He does them a lot. This little fella here, it belonged to my mother, Lord mercy on her, and it was in her home place always. It never came to where she got married and where we lived. It never came there, and after she died in 1991, 2 years later, her sister-in-law gave it to me. She had minded it all them years, and she had 8 children, and nobody ever got to put their hand on it, I can tell you. So I was very delighted to get that.
Can you lift it up and let me have a look at it? Hold it up there. Be careful. The colour is gorgeous, isn't it?
Yeah.
And was it little for jam, was it, or sugar?
I imagine maybe sugar. I don't really know, to tell you the truth. I don't know. I'd say it was never used.
What was your mammy's name?
My mother's name was Margaret Higgins. She was O'Hara and she married Higgins up in Sleevey. That's it. This I was given by my godmother as a child. I don't remember getting it, so I must have been very, very small. It was the only present I ever got from her.
You want to get that on record, do you?
I can say that now because she's long gone. But I was never let play with it either. It was always kept up and good, and you couldn't play with that. And that passed on to I have a daughter and 3 boys, but no, I never let her play with it either.
And isn't it a good thing for a child? It is a child's
It's a child's toy tea set, yeah. And there is actually a coffee set that kind of matches it. It's not the exact match, but near enough. Have at home as well.
And would your mammy not let you play with it?
Oh no way. No, it was kept in a box in the sideboard, and it was in the box until the box just disintegrated, and it was put up in the press then on display. This belonged to my granny Higgins. There's actually 2 of them, but I only brought 1. I don't know anything at all about it, but it's old. My granny died in the 61. My granny died in 61, and I say it must have been a wedding present or something, 2 of them. No. So, gorgeous. It's nice. I'll let Vincie speak about this because it's his. I'll come back to this one in a minute.
Come on, Vincent, tell us, who's this?
That's a granduncle of mine. He was a priest. He was ordained in 1897. He was appointed in Bunclody, and he got sick in Bunclody, and he was removed out of Bunclody he went to France then for treatment. He had TB, and he came back from France. Didn't do him any good anyway, and he was stationed in Munseed for 6 months, and when he got worse then, and he came back home, and he died at home in the house in 1902.
At 32 years.
At 32 years of age.
He was only 5 years ordained.
Yeah.
And buried in the.
He's buried in the graveyard above.
What was his name?
Peter Somers.
Father Peter.
Father Peter Somers.
Peter Somers, yeah.
And it's unusual to have an image of him from that far back.
Yeah, well, that's it now, anyway.
That's him.
And again, remind me, where is he buried again?
He's buried in Limerick Cemetery. Down in the bottom of it. That's where he's buried.
Did any of the rest of the family go off to become priests?
Oh, my God, they didn't. No. No, we didn't take up that profession.
And you've got another photograph here beside you.
We've another photograph, a little bit of a story about it. Vincie's home house. It was hanging in the parlour or the sitting room or whichever they called it, the parlour, I suppose, in them days when I came to Kilnear and when we got married, which was in 1977. And that picture hung on the wall in that room all along. Now we had a house fire in what year, Vincie? 84. And that room was completely untouched, and things were taken out of it then because we built another house. And this came from that house up to where we are now in the bungalow. But Margaret being Margaret anyway, she had it inside for a while, never had hung it up, and eventually it made its way out to the garage. wasn't keeping this thing. It was in a frame and all that. And the other day we were clearing out the garage and I came across it anyway in a press. And I said, I'm going to bring it in. And I did. And I read this here. You can, if you're able to see it, you'll be able to tell the people the year it is on it. And 1899, and it was a photograph taken by Percival. It's only the last few days now, and I can't remember his name. Percival, anyway, in London. And I said, I'm going to Google it. And I gone in along with it in my hand, and I Googled Percival, and the first thing that came up on my phone was this picture. It's only about 2 weeks ago. And I said, oh, that's amazing. It must be valuable. See the way it had been folded to fit a frame and all back in them days. And there was one for sale on the internet at the time. I said, I wonder how much it is. I think it was about £180. So not major value, but a treasure now. An absolute treasure. Beautiful. He was apparently a very well-known photographer. Just an awful lot of pictures belong to him. So.
And how did that end up in your family home, do you know?
I'd safely say, like other things, Vincie's mother went to these, they call it the car boot sale now, but you know, auctions, and there'd be a basket of stuff sold together, and I'd say that was in it. I would imagine that was in it. Well, it's a lovely thing to have discovered now, after all this bad treatment.
And it's a gorgeous image as well.
It is lovely.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
It's a lovely
yeah,
image.
if you Google that man, you'll see a lot of his things. Percival, London.
Brilliant.
Loads and loads of it.
And you've got...
So that's it. And that's himself.
Mr. Father Somers as well then beside... Yeah.
Father Somers.
Of course. Brilliant. Listen,
Okay.
thanks both of you for doing that, bringing them along.
That's right.
Yeah. Now, what do you have?
An old block plane. I have a little lathe. It's an old hand drill, and it's an old curve plane.
Why did you bring them along?
I just seen them in the shed there, and people might like to see what they used years ago.
Who did it belong to, John?
I don't know who wanted these, but they were in me father's shed.
Did he work with his hands, did he?
No, he didn't, no. This belonged to the late Mick Bush. I acquired a half him. Before I went, if I was a little late, I acquired off him.
Is it a homemade job, is it?
Well, the lathe is not. He put the motor on it to make it go faster, I presume. I don't, whether it was that on a motor all the time, I don't know. Mick Murphy might know more about it.
So he got a motor, maybe looks like an alternator, does it?
It's a washing machine motor.
Go way over that. And he put it onto this thing here.
Yeah.
That's gorgeous. And did you ever use it yourself?
I turned one little piece on it just to see what it was like, yeah. It was for turning things for clocks. So it's out of a jeweller's spot.
So it's lovely because you got something old and you got something kind of new. And
so he modified it to put that on it.
Brilliant. And he put the switch on it here. I see that. Look at that.
I put the switch on it. He had no switch. It was just straight plug in, so I put a switch on it.
I take everything back.
Yeah.
And tell me about the plane here, lad. How does that work? How does just for someone who's never seen one before?
Well, it has the, if you can, there's a blade there, so you just run it like that. It's like, so.
Lovely old piece of equipment, isn't it? And show us the old drill.
The old drill is like, turned there like that. You drilled away.
And do you remember your father or anyone at home using that?
Yeah, I remember using it myself.
Yeah.
I remember, especially the drill, always came in handy. Planes, they were just left there in a bucket. So I just put them in my shed now to keep them.
Yeah. Good man. I love that. That's brilliant. And if I plugged it in now, would it work?
I'd say so, yeah. Definitely works. Was working anyhow, unless the mice have hit the wires or something. But bit of dust, maybe it'll go blow up with the bit of dust on it. So it did work anyway. I turned a bit on it.
Good man. And again, the man's name who made that?
Well, he didn't make it. I just acquired a half Mick Bush, late Mick Bush. I was working in his house and I asked him would he part with it. So he parted with it.
Brilliant. Lovely. Thanks for bringing that along.
No matter.
Good man, thanks for hanging around as well.
Yeah.
Appreciate that.
Hi, my name is Margaret. I used to work in Brown's Pub, and as you see, these are lobbers. The game itself is called skittles, and it originated up in the back of the houses in Curragh. It's about over 50 years, about 50 years going. It was originally, I don't know how it came to Curragh because I've asked a few people and they can't tell me, but the game has came from France. It's played all over parts of Tipperary, the west of Ireland. There's a couple of different rules in them. They played for about a year or two, the lads at night time in the back of an alleyway, a laneway in the back of Curragh, and at that time they said, right, we want to do something. The lads used to drink down in Browne's pub, and Peter Browne asked them would they bring the game down. So they played it outside of Browne's pub. I was involved in it for a good few years. I've not anymore, but I still do the bits. The game is in a circle, and you're about 29 feet away from the pin. So it has in the circle, if you can imagine, so you have 1, 2, 4, 5 and 3 in a circle, if you can imagine a circle. And what you have to do, this circle has a rim of about 20 inches, no, 20, about that size. Measurements now has gone out of my head. But they sit in the middle of the circle, of the white line. There is a board in front of it, and you have to hit, you're standing about 29 feet away from it, and you have to hit the pins out of the circle. That's the basis of the game. You can't leave a pin on the line, can't even be a millimetre, can't even be just barely on the line at all. It has to be out. And you start from 51 and you work and you end on a 1. So that means that if you had, say, 4, you have to hit your 3 and then your 1 out to win the game. And it's the best of 3. It had been played from teams from Bunclody, from Wexford have come up to play it when I was doing it at the start. There was great rivalry. It's on from the months of June till the end of August. Redmonds now have continued the tradition. As I say, it's about 50 years going in Gorey. It's brilliant. Last year we had it here in the Heritage Week, the weekend here, and I think people got great fun out of it. It sounds really easy to actually knock the pin out of the circle, but when you're standing 29 feet away, you've 3 lobbers and you've only 3 chances, and it's worked that there's a team of 4 on the team. So I'll go first, the next person, the opponent team, then your teammate till the 4 until you work down from 51 down. Something like darts, but you work from your 51 down. About 22 years ago, the women could play with the men, but it was kind of not seen as much. So us, crowd of us decided, why not start a league with the women in it? So there's a men's league and a ladies' league in it now. That's going about 22 years ago now. As I say, it's brilliant entertainment. People have stopped travelling. They've stopped party, as you see outside of Browne's there. to see what the game is. I had one gentleman a few years ago, about 10 years ago, he was from Tipperary. He stopped and he says, oh, we play that, how do you do it? And they actually do it the opposite way round. So they started at a 1 and finished at the 51, but still ended on the 1, like, which I don't know, it was a bit strange the way they did it, but they did it the opposite way to us. A couple of years ago, the Roses of Tralee stopped in Gorey, and the ladies had a look at it. They were meant to be going down the street, and they stopped to see what the commotion was on the corner. A few of them actually threw the lobbers. They're called lobbers, and the pins. The following year, the Rose of Tralee committee asked myself and my colleague, would we run a little bit of a session with the Roses so that they could all stop and have a few throws and that. And they got a little trophy then at the end of it to say they had played at the Skittles. They picked a winner on it, which was great fun for them. The lobbers themselves are made with hardwood. Now this one is about 7 or 8 year old. They don't normally last that length because you can imagine you're hitting them at severe force up against the wall. They could end up against the wall, but they're made of hardwood, usually rosewood, because it's the hardest wood, and it won't to stop it from bouncing, you steep it overnight to stop it from actually bouncing. That's it. It's just a tradition that has been going in Gorey for about 50 years, so that's
and
it.
Lovely, and it's found all over Wexford, because I see down south of the county, up in Ballynastragh, we're playing it in the 40s, Killeen, Munamalin.
Yeah, it's found all. We used to have teams coming from Ballynastragh and from Munamalin.
Yeah.
Brilliant rivalry from teams.
Yeah.
Bunclody, there used to be teams come from Bunclody. There still is a couple of teams come from Bunclody. Brilliant.
Bridgetown in South Wexford, Casta in South Wexford as well. They do.
Yeah, it's played all over.
Yeah.
It's played, as I say, in the west of Ireland as well.
Isn't it great to see it surviving in Gorey still?
Yeah.
Lovely.
It's actually, there's a few people have tried to revive it again, to get it going in a couple of other places as well, which is brilliant, to see it, but it's never stopped outside of Browns and Gorey there.
I think Wexford is the home of Skittles though. It is. Lovely. Thanks a million, Mark.
Okay,
bringing it along.
thank you.
Denny, what do you have?
That's known as a bed jar for still before the hot water bottles.
Do you ever use one?
I did use that one actually. You'd have to put a stocking on that or put a stocking on your feet.
Burn the legs off you, would it?
Would have burned the feet off you, yeah. Filled with boiling water.
And was there a rubber on it?
That's just a seal.
Oh God. So Denny, are you that older with that?
Be bored, Michael, I suppose.
Tell me this, what else have you got?
It's Bible, Michael. I don't know what age it is. The lady that owned it has her name on it there, 1871. But
her name was Pettit.
Kate Pettit, yeah. Came out of the FCJ convent in Bunclody originally.
Where did you save that from?
I saved it from being dumped actually, right?
Is there any illustrations in it, Denny?
Just one here, there, down, Michael.
It's in gorgeous order. Denny, thanks a million for bringing them along.
Thanks, Michael.
Brilliant. Byron, what did you bring?
So I bought an assortment of things, not too many, but first of all, to get through them, I bought 2 of my trowels. I'm actually an archaeologist by trade for the last 13 years. which is a hell of a long time, considering I'm so young. But yeah, the first job I ever was on, I had got my first trowel, and then my colleagues were like, what name do you have on it? I was like, what? I was like, did you name your trowel? It's like, no, I haven't named my trowel. Well, do. So I have now 5 trowels, and they all have individual names on them. So this was my first one ever. You can see how worn it is now. It was a bit too much for some people. Don Trowliani. I think I was going through a bit of a mafia movie phase at the time. But that was my first one. They're all trowel / tea related. This one is Trowleen. She's named after my granny, Aileen. So that's how I got that one. So yeah, these two, there's one that I currently use obviously, and there's 2 more at home up on the wall. And some of them have been used locally. My first job in Ireland was actually where the old Tesco is, in Gorey. And we found burnt mounts and fullet fields associated with those burnt mounts, cooking pits basically. And ferns as well would be another notable one that was in my career. 2019, and we found 3,500 artifacts. That's in the little field behind the Centra. There's a new housing estate being built there at the moment. So yeah, 3,500 artifacts in that small space alone. This is my pride and glory. Many of you might remember Dustin, the turkey, who was closest to getting us to Eurovision there a few years ago. Over the last few years. So this is actually Dustin's 32 counties. I don't know if anyone remembers their kids playing that. I'm sure my mum definitely does remember me playing that because it's going absolutely mental to it. And loud, very loud. So this was actually found outside my granddad's house. It's an old Guinness bottle. It's probably a little present or something like that. It's there's still actually a drop in it. So yeah, it has the St. James's Gate and the harp and everything on it. The granddad was our neighbours essentially, so we had a little tree house unbeknown to him. And when we were mucking around in the tree house, found this in the ground. So
any idea how old it is, Byron?
I actually don't know. I'm guessing I could be in doubt now, but I'd say maybe 60s, 70s. Maybe someone could shed some light on it. I'm not entirely sure. 50s, 60s, 70s maybe. Hopefully older. You never know.
You ever tempted to crack it open some night?
Be a good drop. I'm a good man myself as well. And this probably the most important. My grandfather, very dear to us, passed away in 2001, and I suppose naturally, kind of after his death, kind of as we all do, kind of looking through our family's belongings, maybe out of interest or inquisitively, I don't know, just to see what he had. And he always wore a tweed jacket. He wore a tweed jacket down to the beehives. Tweed jacket and trousers, nothing else. No safety stuff that we see now. Just a tweed jacket. That was a hard man. But anyway, in his tweed jacket we found this wallet. I think it's leather wallet. And in it there was about 5 or 6 coins, 2 of which I have today. One dated 1906 and one dated 1914. So before independence. They have Britannia on one side, and on the other side I think it was Edward, I think. So 1914, obviously a tumultuous time, and then another one at home, 1916, obviously a big year as well in this country.
What was your granddad's name?
George Jones. Yeah. So yeah, they're like, I don't know how many of those are around the country. They're obviously, people have loads of pingons and maybe the old notes from the maybe 40s, 50s, but I don't know if there's too many of these around. They're pretty cool.
The fact that he carried him around was interesting, isn't it?
I know. I'm not sure as to why he carried them around. I suppose in his own life had a fairly hard time in his childhood, and actually moved to Gorey from Fort Mountain and stuff, and maybe he carried him as a memento or a memory or something of his childhood days. I just don't know, but yeah, they're very special.
Are you glad you have them?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Piece of Irish history, even though it's pre-independence, but yeah, a lovely piece of history. So not too many of them around, I don't think. So yeah,
thanks for bringing
thank
them
you,
up.
and thank you for inviting us. Thank you.
It's a replica of a spinning wheel, just in miniature, and I brought it from Mauritius in the south of France, going back some years ago. It does work, it does everything it's supposed to do. You just need someone with some skill that was able to actually put the wool into it, that's all. And this one here is a bed warmer. So, warming the bed, the coals went in there, and then there was the long handle, and you shoved it around the bed to heat the whole job a lot.
And can I ask you, Steve, where do you get that from?
That's come from a neighbour, south local, yeah, an old farmhouse, that's where that was got.
An old farmhouse near Camolan, is it?
Yeah. And this one as well, the same. This was the old hilly lamp. It was an outdoor lamp for when they were doing the work in the evening time and whatnot, milking cows and all that sort of thing. The glass is missing off it all right. I actually had a mantle here for him last week. It was from that type of hilly lamp. Then that's for hanging up in the shed or wherever they were working. That was that.
And they were primed, weren't they? With
oh yeah. The pump on them there. That pumped them up, put the air into them, and that put the...
And what fuel did you use?
Paraffin. Oh, definitely paraffin. Yeah, definitely paraffin. That's what it was. They were primed there.
And come back here, Steve. I want to ask you about the bedpan. What did you put in that bedpan to keep it warm?
I think it was embers out of the fire. I think it was actually put into it. It wasn't water. Yeah.
Degree shock.
Degree shock. That's the job. You have it.
Now,
as far as I know, that's what it was now.
What else do you have?
Bits and pieces, just local shops. That's not there no more. John Roach of Camolan, 1966, and that's closed down. Parkside is actually there now. Parkside pub. That's in that one. And this was Thomas Hayes in Court Street in Enniscorthy.
That's Hayes' pub in Asgard II.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You probably know about that one.
Yeah.
That's what it was. And this is a very local shop, you know it. Thomas Doyle, Ballynastragh.
Come on.
Yeah.
Gorgeous, Steve.
Yeah.
In great order still.
In great order.
And can I ask you, how do you get your hands on these things?
Any place I see rubbish, I collect it. I think that's the best answer. And that one's an Enniscorthy one. Yes, Earl, but it's not me.
Earls of Enniscorthy.
Yeah, they were bakers at that time. Yeah, that's that one. And there's Lawrence Style Ferns. That's closed now as well. 1956. That's closed now as well. It's in where Century's in the top of the town now in Ferns. I think it's Century, whatever it is up there. That's the headline for them. And this is from Lamp Isle.
Camolan as well.
Yeah, the day was on it someplace. That's Thomas Doyle, Ballynastragh House. And that's for the lamp oil for this lad. It was called lamp oil now, not paraffin in them days. That's what it is. That's basically it.
Brilliant.
That's one out of Barclough.
What do you have in that foolscap there? Being nosy.
I have a special one in this one now.
I knew it was special because it was in plastic.
This is a summons for a dog. For having an unlicensed dog. That's what it is. Will I read out some of it? I won't read the top bit here now. District Summons of Gorey, whatever. Whereas a complaint has been made to me that you, the said defendant, had on the 7th day of March 1927 in your possession or custody Cloney Ballyduff in the said district County of Wexford. Dog not duly registered or licensed in accordance with the provision of the Dogs Regulation Acts 1965 to 1919. This is to command you to appear as defendant on the hearing of the said complaint at the District Court of Gorey in the said County of Wexford Friday, the 25th day of March 1925 at 2 o'clock. Before such as we shall in time, the rest of us all sign, I can't read it. But that's the summons. And this is where the payment was made. I said, I, the undersigned, being duly authorised by the Revenue Commissioners, hereby grant licence to so-and-so Ballyduff Camorran on the 3rd of the 12th, 27. The dog described below, and I hereby certify that the licence duty to the amount of 5 shillings has been received by me in respect of such a dog. Date of this 9th of March 1927. That's it. That's the summons, and that's the pay. That's the Camorra Post Office. Stamp for the Camorra Post Office, yeah.
How did you come across that?
We don't want to go into too many details. The main thing is a habit. The rest of them are only ones, really.
Thanks a million, Steve.
Oh, what a lovely job.